Why do we keep searching for answers in the same crowded places? We read endless advice and chase new solutions, yet a deep sense of purpose can feel just out of reach. Perhaps the most profound guidance has been waiting for us all along, not in a new bestseller, but in the ancient whispers of Indian sages. This is Hrishikeshs Tales, a collection of timeless wisdom stories that cut straight to the heart of what it means to live well. By the end of our journey, you will carry a new lens for viewing your own life's challenges and relationships. We will explore why a wise man would save a scorpion that repeatedly stings him, and how a king discovered that his entire palace was not truly his own. What is the one question you secretly hope these ancient stories might answer for you? A man stands knee-deep in a rushing river, his focus entirely on a small, struggling form caught in the current. It is a scorpion. With calm determination, he reaches down, his fingers gently closing around the creature to lift it to safety. But in that moment of rescue, a sharp, piercing pain shoots through his hand. The scorpion, driven by its very nature, has stung him. The man recoils, dropping the scorpion back into the water, where it immediately begins to drown once more. Without a moment's hesitation, the man reaches for it again, and again he is stung. This cycle repeats over and over as a disciple watching from the riverbank grows increasingly frustrated. Finally, he cries out, "Master, why do you keep saving that ungrateful creature? It hurts you every single time." The sage turns, cradling his swollen hand, and offers a reply that echoes across centuries. He says, "The scorpion stings because it is its nature to sting, and I save because it is my nature to save. Why should I abandon my duty simply because another follows its own?" This is the profound lesson of Dharma, a concept often translated as duty, but one that runs far deeper. It is the essential truth of who you are and what you are meant to do in this world, a purpose that remains unchanged by the reactions of others. The sage was not performing a random act of kindness. He was living his fundamental nature, which was to preserve life. He did not save the scorpion expecting gratitude, nor did he stop because he received pain. His commitment was to his own integrity, a force so unwavering that external circumstances could not bend it. So where does this ancient story live in your modern life? It appears in the difficult relationship you choose to navigate with compassion, even when met with coldness. It is in the demanding project you see through to the end, not for the praise, but because you committed to doing it well. It is the inner calling you follow, even when others question your path or it brings you temporary discomfort. The scorpion's sting represents all the inevitable frustrations and setbacks, the thankless tasks and the emotional tolls. The sage's repeated action is the quiet power of showing up anyway, of staying true to your core principles when it would be far easier to walk away. This is not about being a martyr, it is about being anchored. When your actions are rooted in your personal dharma, you are no longer tossed about by the changing winds of reward and punishment. You find a profound stability knowing you are acting from a place of inner truth. What would it feel like to move through your day with that kind of unshakable purpose, where your peace is no longer dependent on the stings you receive from the world? That same unwavering commitment to inner truth extends to the words we choose to release into the world. Another sage, deep in meditation, was approached by a disciple who was breathless with a piece of news. "Master," the young man began, his words tumbling out, "I have heard something about our fellow seeker that you must know." The sage, opening his eyes slowly, held up a hand to pause the eager disciple. "Before you speak," he instructed, "you must pass your words through 3 sieves. The first is the sieve of truth. Are you absolutely certain that what you are about to say is true?" The disciple hesitated. "Well, I am not entirely sure. I heard it from another." "Then it has already failed the first test," the sage replied. "But let us try the second sieve, the sieve of goodness. Is what you are about to tell me something good or kind about this person?" The disciple looked down, ashamed. "No, master, it is not. It is actually quite unflattering." The sage nodded slowly. "Then we come to the final sieve, the sieve of necessity. Is this information you wish to share absolutely necessary for me to hear?" The disciple stood in silence for a long moment, his initial excitement completely deflated. "I suppose not," he finally admitted. The sage offered a gentle smile. "If what you wish to say is not true, is not good, and is not necessary, then why say it at all? This ancient practice transforms gossip into a profound exercise in mindfulness. Every word we speak carries energy capable of building bridges or burning them down. The sieve of truth forces us to confront the shaky foundations of so much of what we hear and repeat. How often do we pass along rumors and half-truths simply because they are interesting without ever verifying their source? The sieve of goodness asks us to examine our intent. Are our words meant to heal, to connect, to uplift, or are they meant to diminish, to separate, to make ourselves feel superior by comparison? And finally, the sieve of necessity challenges our impulse to fill silence with noise. Is this particular piece of information crucial for the listener's understanding or action, or is it merely clutter for their mind? Imagine applying these 3 filters in your own life. In a professional meeting, before critiquing a colleague's idea, you pause. Is my critique based on factual inaccuracies, or is it just a difference of opinion? Is it phrased constructively to help us improve, or is it designed to make my own contribution seem brighter? And is this the right time and place for this comment, or is it unnecessary at this moment? The result is not silence, but communication that is powerful, precise, and compassionate. You begin to speak less, but your words carry more weight. Conflicts that once spiraled out of control are diffused before they even begin, because you refuse to pass along the careless words of others. Your relationships deepen because people learn they can trust you not to traffic in harmful speculation. This is the practical magic of the 3 sieves. They do not just protect others from our words, they protect us from the karmic weight of our own carelessness. What conversations from your past week would have been entirely different if they had passed through these 3 simple gates? A king once believed his power and wealth were the very source of his identity. He ruled a vast kingdom, slept in a golden bed, and possessed treasures beyond counting, yet a persistent emptiness echoed in his grand halls. He decided to conduct a peculiar experiment, swapping his royal robes for the simple rags of a beggar who slept contentedly under a large banyan tree. For 1 full day, he would live as the beggar, and the beggar would enjoy the luxuries of the palace. The king assumed he was granting the poor man the greatest day of his life. He sat beneath the tree, expecting to feel deprivation and misery. But as the hours passed, a strange sensation settled over him. The cool shade of the leaves, the warmth of the sun on his skin, the sound of the river flowing nearby, it all felt deeply familiar, even peaceful. When evening came, he felt a sense of belonging he had never experienced in his own ornate chambers. Meanwhile, the beggar turned, king wandered the palace in a state of anxious confusion. The silken sheets felt foreign and restrictive, the rich food unsettled his stomach, and the constant bowing of servants made him deeply uncomfortable. He spent the night staring at the ceiling, longing for the simplicity of his spot under the stars. The next morning they switched back. The king, now seated on his throne again, found his gaze drifting out the window toward that banyan tree. His palace felt alien, a cold and glittering shell. He finally understood the beggar's secret was not in having nothing, but in being attached to nothing. This is the wisdom of Vairagya, or non-attachment. It is not a call to abandon the world or live in poverty. It is an invitation to change your relationship with what you own. The king's problem was not his palace, but his belief that the palace was him, that his treasures defined his worth and his happiness. The moment he clutched them as his identity, he became their prisoner, constantly afraid of losing them. The beggar, on the other hand, enjoyed the shade of the tree without believing the tree was his. He could find contentment anywhere because his peace was not tied to a specific location or possession. Where does this illusion of ownership show up in your life? It is the anxiety you feel when your new car gets its first scratch. It is the pride you take in your job title and the identity crisis that follows if you lose it. It is the way you cling to a relationship, fearing that its end would mean the end of a part of yourself. Vairagya is the profound understanding that you are the awareness that experiences the car, the job, and the relationship, not the things themselves. When you loosen your grip, you do not lose the joy these things bring. You simply free yourself from the suffering that comes from clinging to them. You can appreciate a beautiful sunset without needing to own it. You can enjoy a successful career without letting it become your entire soul. What would your life feel like if you could engage with the world fully, yet hold it all with an open hand? A young potter, apprenticed to a revered master, struggled for months with a single piece of clay. He would sit at the wheel, his hands trembling with the effort to keep the spinning mound perfectly centered and rising in a smooth, uninterrupted line. But again and again, the clay would wobble, collapse, or develop a hidden flaw that caused the entire form to buckle. One afternoon, after watching his disciples growing frustration, the master sat beside him. He did not take over the wheel. Instead, he placed a hand over the young man's and guided his touch not to resist the clay's movement but to follow it. He allowed the spinning form to dip and swell, to fall slightly before rising again. The young man protested, "But master, the fall is a mistake. It ruins the symmetry." The old potter shook his head gently. "You are wrong," he said. "A vessel shaped only by rising would be weak, its walls too thin to hold anything of substance. It is the gentle falling, the controlled descent, that gives it depth and strength. Both the upward push and the downward pull are the hands of the divine, working together to shape something that can truly serve its purpose." This ancient insight reveals a fundamental truth we so often forget. We label the rising moments of our lives as success and the falling ones as failure. We celebrate promotions and windfalls while we dread losses and rejections, fighting against the natural rhythm of the wheel. But the master potter teaches us that a life without dips and hollows is like a vase without an interior, beautiful on the outside but ultimately useless. It cannot hold wisdom, compassion, or resilience. The challenge you face right now, that difficult period you are desperate to escape, might be the very force that is carving out your capacity for greater joy, for deeper understanding, for a strength you did not know you possessed. Think of a time you faced a significant disappointment. Perhaps a project you poured your heart into was cancelled, or a relationship you cherished came to an end. In that moment of falling, it felt like a pure loss, but later, with the perspective of time, you may have seen how that hollow space created by the loss made room for something new. It might have forced you to develop a new skill, to reevaluate your priorities, or to discover a resilience you never knew you had. That career setback taught you patience. That heartbreak opened you to a more authentic connection later. The wheel had to fall to create the vessel's essential shape. What if you could meet your next challenge not with resistance, but with the curious trust of the potter, knowing that this pressure, this dip, is an integral part of your own beautiful and unique formation? A learned Brahmin was walking home one evening, a fine goat balanced across his shoulders, a gift for a ceremony. His mind was filled with sacred verses, his heart light with the satisfaction of a good deed. Along the path, he was met by 3 thugs who eyed his prize with greedy interest. Instead of simply robbing him, they chose a more cunning weapon, the weapon of a well-crafted lie. The first thug stepped forward, feigning shock. "Honorable sir," he said, "why are you carrying a dead dog on your shoulders? It is an unclean animal, unfit for a man of your stature." The Brahmin was insulted. "This is a goat, you fool, can you not see?" He continued on his way, shaking his head at the man's foolishness. A little further, the second thug approached, his face a mask of concern. "Sir, please, that is highly improper. A great sage like yourself parading around with a dead dog. What will people think?" The Brahmin's steps faltered. Two people, the same strange accusation. A sliver of doubt, cold and unwelcome, pricked his certainty. He looked at the goat, its hide suddenly seeming less white, its form less familiar. When the third thug appeared, his words were the final blow. "I cannot believe my eyes, a respected Brahmin carrying a rotting carcass. This is a disgrace to our entire village." The Brahmin's intellectual certainty, built upon years of study, crumbled under the weight of a unified, if entirely false, consensus. In a fit of disgust and confusion, he threw the perfectly healthy goat to the ground and ran home, convinced he had been tainted by an unclean animal. The thugs, of course, simply collected their prize. The Brahmin's failure was not a lack of knowledge. He knew it was a goat. His failure was a lack of viveka, or spiritual discernment, the crucial ability to distinguish the real from the unreal, the true from the false, regardless of what the crowd is shouting. He had bookish knowledge, but he lacked the inner compass to navigate a world filled with deception. His mind was a library, but he had forgotten how to think for himself. This ancient story is playing out on a colossal scale in our modern world. You are that Brahmin every time you scroll through your social media feed. A headline makes an outrageous claim. You see it shared by one person, then another, then an entire group seems to endorse it. The sheer repetition begins to feel like truth, and your own initial skepticism is shouted down by the invisible chorus. The thugs are no longer on a dusty path. They are algorithms and influence campaigns designed to exploit your doubt. Discernment is the practice of pausing before you internalize or share that information. It is asking, what is the source of this claim? What evidence supports it? Who benefits from me believing this? It is the courage to stand by your own reasoned judgment when popular opinion pulls you in a different direction. This applies to the biggest decisions of your life. Choosing a career path because it is prestigious rather than because it aligns with your skills and values is falling for the thug's chorus. Staying in a relationship because everyone else thinks it is perfect while your inner voice whispers otherwise is abandoning your goat. Discernment is not cynicism, it is the highest form of respect for the truth. It is the quiet, unwavering voice that reminds you of what you saw with your own eyes before the crowd began to speak. How many of your own goats have you thrown away because you trusted the noise of the world over the quiet certainty of your own mind? An old man sits with his grandson under the vast, starry sky, the fire between them casting long, dancing shadows. The boy is troubled, his small brow furrowed by a conflict with a friend that has left a bitter taste of anger in his heart. He asks his grandfather how to rid himself of such a dark feeling. The elder looks into the flames and speaks a timeless truth. He says, "A terrible fight is going on inside me, inside every person. It is a battle between two wolves. One is evil. He is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego." He pauses, letting the weight of those words settle. The other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. The grandson thinks about this for a long minute, the crackle of the fire the only sound. "Which wolf will win, grandfather?" The old man replies softly, "The one you feed." This simple story holds a profound key to your inner world. The wolves are not mythical beasts, but representations of the neural pathways in your own brain. Every time you indulge in a resentful thought, you are throwing a feast for the wolf of anger. Every time you choose compassion over criticism, you are strengthening the wolf of love. The battle is not won in a single grand gesture, but in the countless small choices you make from the moment you wake up. Feeding the good wolf is not about denying your negative emotions. The wolf of anger will always be there. It is part of your human inheritance. The wisdom lies in acknowledging its presence without handing it the knife and fork. When a rush of jealousy appears, you notice it without letting it dictate a harsh text message. You are not feeding it. When a wave of self-pity washes over you, you acknowledge the feeling, but then you consciously recall one thing you are grateful for. You have just offered a scrap of nourishment to the other wolf. So what does a practical meal for the positive wolf look like in your daily life? It is the 5 minutes of quiet breathing you take before checking your phone in the morning, a direct offering to the wolf of peace. It is the conscious decision to wish a difficult colleague well in your mind, feeding the wolf of compassion. It is the choice to listen fully to someone without planning your response, an act of sustenance for the wolf of empathy. It is turning away from the endless scroll of negative news to take a walk outside, feeding the wolf of joy with the simple beauty of the world. These are not monumental tasks. They are tiny, consistent deposits into the account of your character. The negative wolf is often fed by autopilot, by our unconscious habits of complaint, comparison, and fear. The positive wolf requires conscious choice, a moment of pause where you ask yourself, which wolf am I serving right now? Your entire day is a series of these small feedings. The quality of your life is determined by which wolf grows stronger, which one you have consistently nourished with your attention and your actions. What will you choose to feed with your very next thought? That final question of which wolf you feed echoes across the water to a lone man in a small boat. He is peacefully drifting down a wide river, lost in the gentle rhythm of the oars and the quiet of the evening. Without warning, a heavy thud jars him from his reverie. Another boat, adrift and unmoored, has slammed into the side of his own. A surge of hot, immediate anger floods his chest. He scrambles to his feet, his face flushing, ready to shout at the careless fool who was not watching where he was going. He leans over, shaking his fist, prepared to unleash a torrent of accusations. But then he sees it. The other boat is completely empty. It is just a vessel, untethered, moved by the random currents of the river. In an instant, his anger vanishes. There is no one to be angry at. He simply pushes the boat away and sits back down, his irritation dissolving into the evening air as if it were never there. This is the profound teaching of the empty boat. The collision was the same, the jolt was the same. The only thing that changed was the story he told himself about it. When he believed there was a person in that boat, his mind instantly crafted a narrative of intentional rudeness, of a personal insult that demanded a response. His ego felt attacked and rose to defend itself, but when he saw the boat was empty, the narrative collapsed. There was no malicious intent, no one to blame, and therefore no reason for his anger to continue. Our emotional turbulence is almost never about the event itself, but about the person we imagine is in the other boat. Your frustration in a traffic jam is not about the stopped cars. It is about the story you tell yourself of other drivers being incompetent or inconsiderate, a story that feels like a personal inconvenience. Your irritation with a loved one is rarely about the single forgotten chore. It is about the narrative you attach to it, a story of being disrespected or unappreciated. We are constantly bumping into empty boats, yet we spend our lives screaming at the phantoms we believe are steering them. The path to freedom lies in recognizing the empty nature of so many of our triggers. This does not mean becoming passive or ignoring real harm. It means pausing in that moment between the bump and the outburst to ask a simple, powerful question. Is there actually someone in this boat, or am I reacting to a story I have written? That critical email from a colleague feels like a direct attack. But what if their boat is empty? What if they are simply overwhelmed, distracted by a personal crisis, or genuinely unaware of how their words landed? This is not about making excuses for them. It is about liberating yourself from the corrosive fire of a reaction that was based on a misunderstanding. When you stop filling empty boats with imaginary captains, you reclaim an immense amount of energy. conflicts that would have ruined your day simply dissolve. You stop taking things so personally because you realize most actions of others are not about you at all. They are the result of their own unseen currents, their own struggles and distractions. You begin to navigate the river of your life with a profound and steady peace, not because the collisions stop, but because you finally see most of them for what they truly are, just empty boats bumping in the night. How much quieter would your mind be if you learned to see the emptiness in the vessels that drift into your path? That same river, now swollen into a raging flood, carries a different lesson on a broken log. A troop of monkeys caught in the rising waters desperately clings to a massive, floating tree trunk. It is their only perceived safety in the churning chaos. The current pulls them swiftly downstream toward a roaring waterfall. From the safety of the riverbank, villagers shout and gesture, their message clear. Let go of the log, swim to the shore, but the monkeys cannot hear them over the roar of the water, or perhaps they simply do not understand. They trust the solid wood beneath their hands, this familiar thing they have always known. They cling tighter as the log picks up speed. One by one, a few of the younger monkeys, their arms aching with exhaustion, finally release their grip. They are immediately swallowed by the cold water, fighting the current, but they swim. They struggle toward the banks and are pulled to safety by waiting hands. The others, however, hold on with a death grip, convinced the log is their salvation. They ride it all the way to the precipice and are pulled into the abyss, still clinging to the very thing that sealed their fate. This ancient allegory holds a brutal and beautiful truth about survival. The floating log represents every outdated belief, every toxic relationship, every rigid plan we clutch for dear life when the world around us is changing. Letting go feels like surrender, like accepting defeat. But the monkeys who swam understood that in the midst of a flood, the old rules no longer apply. Solid ground is gone, and your only chance is to trust your ability to navigate the current itself. Where is that floating log in your own life? It is the career path you invested in for 20 years, now made obsolete by technology, yet you cling to the identity it gave you. It is the story you tell yourself about being a victim of circumstance, a narrative that keeps you stuck but feels familiar and therefore safe. It is the toxic friendship you maintain out of loyalty, even as it drains your energy and self-worth. You can hear the distant roar of the waterfall, the growing sense of dread that things cannot continue this way, yet your fingers are locked in place. Letting go is not giving up. It is the ultimate act of trust in your own resilience. The monkey must release the known security of the log to discover it has the innate skill to swim. You must release the old plan to discover new capacities within yourself you never knew you had. That person who loses the job they hated but were too afraid to leave often finds, after the initial terror, a surge of creative energy. They start a small business, retrain in a field they love, or simply find a peace they had forgotten was possible. They had to let the log go to find the shore. The floodwaters of life are not a mistake. They are a natural force of change, clearing away what is no longer meant to hold you, creating space for new growth. Your choice is not whether the waters will rise, but whether you will have the courage to release your grip on the sinking past and swim toward an unknown, but potentially liberating future. What log are your hands gripping so tightly that your arms are too tired to swim? These stories are not separate lessons, but different threads in the same timeless tapestry of wisdom. From the sage and the scorpion, we learn the power of Dharma, of living our deepest truth regardless of the stings we receive. The three sieves teach us that our words are powerful tools, and that mindful speech is an act of profound respect for ourselves and others. The king and the beggar show us that true freedom is found not in owning more, but in being attached to less, in holding our possessions and identities with an open hand. The potter's wheel reveals that the dips and falls in our lives are not mistakes to be resisted, but essential contours that give us depth and strength. The Brahmin and the goat warn us of the peril of losing our own discernment to the loudest chorus, reminding us to trust the quiet voice of our own inner truth. The two wolves illustrate that our character is shaped by the countless small choices of what we feed with our attention and energy, and the empty boat and the floating log together offer the ultimate keys to inner peace and courage, teaching us to stop fighting phantoms and to release our death grip on a sinking past when it is time to swim toward a new shore. Woven together, these tales form a single guiding principle, a map for navigating life with unwavering integrity, clear perception, and a resilient heart. This ancient wisdom is not a relic to be studied, but a living compass to be carried. It asks us to live with purpose, speak with care, engage with the world without being chained to it, accept the full shape of our experiences, think for ourselves, choose our inner state with intention, and find the courage to let go when the river demands it. So, which of these stories resonated most deeply within you? Was it the one that answered a question you have been carrying, or the one that challenged a habit you have long held? Share your favorite tale or a personal lesson it sparked in the comments below. And if this journey into wisdom has illuminated your path, subscribe for more tales from the sages. The most profound discoveries are not found in distant lands, but in the stories we choose to live by.